This is the extraordinary tale of Rashid, a boy born into poverty, raised on the waves of the sea, and destined for greatness through trials, choices, and fate. The story begins with a poor widow who lives by the seashore with her only child, struggling each day to survive by collecting discarded fish. One ordinary day by the seashore turned out to be the most extraordinary and heartbreaking day in a poor widow's life. As usual, she was collecting leftover fish to feed her only child when a ship mistakenly anchored nearby due to fog and confusion. From it descended a group of men, led by an elderly, kind-looking captain. Curious about their location, the captain approached the woman and asked about the area. Seeing her poor condition and the child clinging to her chest, the captain was struck with sympathy. But what he said next would shake the mother to her core. Looking into the eyes of the child, the captain said, "What a strong and bright boy. He is meant for more than just poverty and fishnets. If he stays with you, he might become no more than a fisherman. But with me, he can become a great sailor, perhaps even more." Then, with a serious and gentle voice, he made an offer, "Give me your son. Let me raise him as my own. In return, you may take all the money you need. I promise, in 10 years, I will bring him back to you as a proud, capable young man." The mother was frozen with fear and sorrow. Her heart was heavy with the thought of separation, but the future the captain painted was filled with hope and opportunity. After battling her own emotions, tears streaming down her cheeks, she made the painful decision. With trembling hands, she gave her beloved son to the captain, trusting a stranger for the sake. Rashid's new life began the moment he was taken aboard the captain's ship. Though he was too young to understand the depth of the sacrifice his mother had made, the waves of the sea soon became his lullaby, his school, and his world. The old captain, who had no children of his own, kept his promise and raised Rashid with deep affection, strict discipline, and valuable teachings. He named the boy Rashid and treated him as a son, feeding him, clothing him, and, most importantly, teaching him everything he knew about the sea. From tying knots to reading the stars, navigating through storms, and commanding a crew, Rashid absorbed it all with sharp intelligence and eager hands. As the years passed, Rashid grew into a strong and fearless young man. His courage, quick thinking, and leadership began to shine on the deck. The crew respected him not only as the captain's adopted son but also as a natural sailor and a future leader. Rashid could handle the roughest waves and the toughest situations, often impressing even the most seasoned seamen. The captain, now aging, would sit in a quiet corner, smoke his pipe, and watch proudly as Rashid took charge of the ship with confidence. Yet, despite his success at sea, Rashid sometimes found his heart drifting back to thoughts of his mother. He would quietly ask the captain, "Do I have a mother?" The old man, touched by guilt and love, would reply softly, "Yes, son. She was kind, brave, and full of love for you." He would then mutter to himself, "God knows what condition she's in now." Though Rashid had never stepped back on land since he left, deep within his soul, a seed of longing had taken root, one that would someday grow into a powerful force pulling him back to his origins. As Rashid grew into a skilled and intelligent sailor, his reputation began to spread beyond the decks of his own ship. One day, the old captain received an invitation from a wealthy merchant who owned several trading ships and controlled a vast commercial empire. The merchant, now 80 years old, had no children and was beginning to think about who would inherit his fortune. Grateful to the captain for years of service, he called him for a personal meeting. With a heavy heart, he said, "I have earned immense wealth, but I have no heir. I want to pass it on to someone deserving, someone wise, honest, and capable." The captain, seizing the moment, revealed something he had never shared before. "I have a son," he said proudly. "He is young, brave, and trained in every art of seafaring. He is more than worthy of your trust." The merchant was surprised but curious. He asked to meet the boy. Without delay, the captain brought Rashid before him. Dressed modestly but standing tall with confidence, Rashid made an instant impression. The merchant looked into his eyes and saw intelligence, strength, and humility. "Would you like to stay with me and work for my trading company?" he asked. Rashid, though tied to the sea, agreed respectfully. "If you wish, I will serve you with all my heart." Thus began a new chapter in Rashid's life. The merchant placed him in charge of his warehouses and trade affairs. Rashid quickly proved himself, managing goods, overseeing deals, and attracting more business than ever before. Under his leadership, the merchant's empire thrived even further. The old man was so impressed that he started treating Rashid as his own son. Little did they know, fate had far greater plans for the young sailor who had once been a poor fisherman's child. After earning the trust of the wealthy merchant and proving his brilliance in managing trade, Rashid was finally given the opportunity to lead his first solo voyage. The merchant's business was expanding rapidly, and the demand for goods was growing by the day. However, the warehouses were running low, and the ships had yet to return with new stock. Understanding the urgency, Rashid stepped forward and offered, "If you allow me, I will take a ship myself, bring the goods, and return before the trade suffers any loss." Though hesitant to send him alone, the merchant admired Rashid's courage and determination, and finally agreed. Rashid prepared for the journey with great care. He selected a crew of skilled sailors, loaded the ship with valuable coal to trade, and set sail with hopes high and heart steady. It was the first time he was sailing not just as a sailor, but as the commander of his own mission. The sea was familiar, but the responsibility was new. Days into the journey, a violent storm struck. The waves rose like mountains, and the winds howled with fury. Rashid, however, remained calm. Years of training under the old captain had prepared him for such moments. As the storm scattered the fleet and separated the ships, Rashid fought hard to keep his vessel afloat. Eventually, his ship drifted eastward and landed near a mysterious island. Despite the hardship, Rashid never lost his resolve. His leadership kept the crew hopeful, and his sharp instincts ensured their survival. What began as a trade mission soon turned into an unexpected adventure, one that would challenge his spirit, test his wisdom, and change the course of his life. Rashid's first solo voyage was not only a journey across the sea, but a step toward his true destiny. As Rashid's ship drifted after the storm, it finally approached a strange and unfamiliar island. Hoping to find supplies or help, Rashid and a few of his most experienced sailors went ashore, unaware that they were stepping into a land filled with cruelty and lawlessness. As they walked through the island, they witnessed a horrifying scene, a group of angry men violently beating the corpse of an old man. Shocked and disgusted, Rashid rushed forward and shouted, "Why are you disrespecting the dead? Don't you fear God?" One of the men replied coldly, "This man owed us 50 rupees and died without paying. We're punishing him for his debt." Rashid, heartbroken by the inhumanity, immediately took out money from his pocket and threw it at them, saying, "Here's your 50 rupees, now let him rest in peace." He and his men then buried the old man with dignity. As they moved deeper into the island, they discovered a massive crowd gathered around a beautiful young girl tied near a blazing fire. To his horror, Rashid learned that she was about to be burned alive. Her crime? Refusing to marry the island's cruel king. Rashid couldn't believe such injustice existed. Without wasting time, he stepped forward and offered the executioners a pouch full of gold coins, pleading for the girl's life. After some hesitation, the men agreed and fled with the gold. The girl, deeply grateful, revealed that the island was known as Janga, a cursed place ruled by fear and barbarity. Rashid had not only saved her life but unknowingly set events in motion that would change both their destinies forever. The island of injustice tested Rashid's courage and compassion, and proved that even in a place ruled by cruelty, kindness could still triumph. After rescuing the young woman from the horrifying fate on the island of Janga, Rashid learned a secret that would change the course of his mission. The girl, still shaken but grateful, revealed something astonishing. This island's people treat coal like gold, they eat it, treasure it, and trade it at a high price. If you sell your cargo of coal here, they'll offer you more gold than you can imagine. Rashid was stunned but intrigued. Coal, a simple fuel elsewhere, held immense value in this strange land. But there was danger. The girl warned him, "These people are greedy and cruel. Once the gold is in your ship, leave immediately. If you delay even for a moment, they'll attack you, steal your cargo, and possibly take your life." Understanding the risk, Rashid prepared a secret plan. He approached the island's richest merchant and offered to sell the coal. The merchant, overjoyed, agreed and promised to deliver gold to Rashid's ship by morning. That night, Rashid instructed his sailors to be on high alert. As soon as the gold is loaded, he ordered, "We sail, no matter what." Morning came, and carts full of gold arrived at the ship. The deal was made, and Rashid's coal was unloaded. The moment the last chest of gold touched the deck, Rashid signaled the crew. The anchor was raised, sails unfurled, and the ship surged forward, just as angry shouts began to rise from the shore. Looking back through his spyglass, Rashid saw chaos. Armed men ran toward the coast, too late to catch him. His heart pounded, but he smiled. The plan had worked. That day, Rashid didn't just gain gold, he gained experience, wisdom, and the trust of the girl who had risked everything to help him. It was a secret plan well played and a valuable cargo well earned. With his ship loaded with gold and the rescued girl by his side, Rashid returned home triumphantly. As his vessel docked at the harbor, the entire port came alive with excitement. News of Rashid's success spread quickly, and when the wealthy merchant and the old captain heard of his return, they rushed to welcome him. Their eyes widened with joy and pride when they learned about the treasure Rashid had brought back. It was the greatest profit ever made in a single voyage. However, amidst the celebration, something felt wrong. The rescued girl remained quiet and withdrawn, often lost in thought. Rashid noticed her sadness but respected her silence, assuming she needed time to heal from the horrors of Janga. Meanwhile, the merchant grew more affectionate toward Rashid than ever before. He praised him in public, gave him more authority, and even considered making him his official heir. But as Rashid's success grew, envy stirred in the hearts of others, especially among the merchant's jealous advisors and rival traders. Whispers began to spread. How did Rashid manage such a profitable deal? Was it luck or trickery? Doubt and suspicion started to creep into the merchant's circle. Some advisors even warned him, "Be careful. He may be planning something for himself." But the merchant refused to believe them. "Rashid is like a son to me," he said firmly. "He has earned every bit of what he brought back." Still, Rashid could sense the tension. He had sailed through storms and battled injustice, but now he stood in the middle of another kind of storm, one made not of wind and waves, but of doubt, jealousy, and hidden enemies. Little did he know, darker plans were already in motion, plans that would soon test his courage in ways he had never imagined. Just as Rashid began to settle back into his normal life after the dangerous voyage, the girl he had rescued from the island approached him with a heartfelt request. For days, she had remained quiet, often lost in thought, but now her eyes carried a sense of purpose. "Rashid," she said softly, "you once traveled for your own mission, now, will you travel for mine?" Rashid was surprised but listened patiently. She continued, "I need you to take me to Hispania. I cannot tell you everything now, but I promise it is important, and it concerns my past." Touched by her sincerity and recalling how she had saved his life with her wisdom, Rashid agreed without hesitation. "You risked everything for me. I will go wherever you need me to." The girl smiled for the first time in days. Following her instructions, Rashid packed a ship with a small load of coal, valuable enough to pass as a trade journey, and approached his merchant guardian for permission. Trusting Rashid completely, the merchant agreed, unaware of the true purpose behind the voyage. Once everything was prepared, Rashid returned to the girl, who handed him a beautifully stitched coat, an ancient ring, and 2 mysterious books. She gave him specific instructions: "When you arrive in Hispania, wear this coat and go to the royal church on Sunday. Sit on the silver chair near the priest's platform. Wear the ring on your right hand and begin reading from this book. No matter what happens, stay silent and leave quietly." Though puzzled, Rashid memorized every detail. He knew this was no ordinary request, it was tied to a deeper mystery. With the girl by his side and a new journey ahead, Rashid once again set sail, not knowing that this voyage to Hispania would uncover secrets that could change both of their lives forever. After weeks of travel across the vast ocean, Rashid finally arrived in Hispania. Following the mysterious girl's instructions carefully, he prepared for what seemed like a simple task, but one that carried a strange sense of importance. On Sunday morning, dressed in the elegant coat she had given him, with the old ring on his finger and the ancient book in his hands, Rashid entered the Grand Royal Church. The atmosphere inside was solemn and majestic, with golden decorations, stained glass windows, and a large crowd gathered for worship. As instructed, Rashid walked quietly through the rows of people and made his way to the 3 chairs near the pulpit, 2 made of gold and 1 of silver. Without hesitation, he sat on the silver chair, opened the book, and began to read softly, running his finger across the lines as the girl had told him. He didn't look around or say a word, even as he sensed people beginning to whisper and glance at him curiously. Moments later, the king and queen entered. The church fell silent in respect, but as the queen's eyes fell on Rashid, her expression changed dramatically. Her face turned pale, and tears welled up in her eyes. She began to sob uncontrollably, covering her mouth with her hands. Everyone was stunned. Who was this stranger that had moved the queen to tears? Seeing her reaction, Rashid quietly closed the book and, without saying a word, walked out of the church, just as he had been instructed. His heart beat fast with confusion and wonder. What connection did the queen have with the girl he had brought with him? What secrets had he just stirred by simply sitting in that silver chair? Rashid didn't know it yet, but he was on the brink of a life-changing revelation. After the mysterious moment in the royal church, Rashid returned quietly to his lodging, still unaware of the storm he had just awakened. Not long after, 3 royal guards arrived at his door with a message. The king and queen of Hispania had personally invited him to the palace for a private dinner. Rashid accepted the invitation respectfully, though his mind was filled with questions. Why had the queen cried at the sight of him? What was the meaning behind her emotional reaction? That evening, dressed with care, Rashid entered the Grand Royal Palace. The king greeted him with warmth, and the queen's eyes glistened with emotion. Over dinner, they asked him about the coat, the ring, and the book, items Rashid had received from the girl he had rescued. When he confirmed her involvement, the queen broke into tears and said, "That girl is our daughter. She was kidnapped years ago when pirates attacked our ship." The room fell into silence. Rashid's mission had unknowingly brought the lost princess back to her family. The king was overjoyed and made a bold declaration. "As a reward for your bravery and honesty, we will marry our daughter to you. You are now our son." The news spread through the palace, but not everyone celebrated. Envious ministers and advisors whispered among themselves, angry that a foreigner would marry the royal princess. They bribed the captain of Rashid's return ship and gave him a dark task: eliminate Rashid on the way back. As Rashid prepared to return with the princess, unaware of the danger that lurked ahead, fate began to twist once more. The royal invitation had turned into a blessing, but betrayal, hidden in the shadows, followed closely behind, ready to strike when least expected. Rashid, unaware of the conspiracy against him, set sail from Hispania with the royal princess aboard his ship. His heart was full of joy, knowing he had fulfilled his promise and was now returning home with honor and love. But treachery sailed with him. The ship's captain, bribed by the jealous ministers of Hispania, had secretly planned to abandon Rashid. One morning, as the sun rose gently over calm seas, Rashid spotted a beautiful island in the distance. Curious and drawn by its charm, he asked the captain to drop anchor so he could explore. The captain, seeing his chance, eagerly agreed. Rashid boarded a small boat and rowed toward the shore, unaware that this would become a prison rather than a peaceful retreat. As soon as Rashid set foot on the island, the captain quietly gave the order to lift the anchor and sail away. By the time Rashid turned back, the ship was already a distant shadow on the sea. Confused and horrified, he shouted for them to return, but no one looked back. Stranded and alone, Rashid wandered the island. Days turned into weeks. His clothes tore, his hair grew long and wild, and he survived on fruits, roots, and rainwater. He waited by the shore every day, hoping for rescue, but none came. The princess, aboard the ship, had been told he was on another vessel and would arrive soon. Back in Hispania, sadness filled the palace. The queen wept for the hero who had vanished, and the princess mourned the man she loved. Meanwhile, on the lonely island, Rashid's spirit began to break. He was the man who had braved storms and saved kingdoms, now forgotten, left with only memories, the sea, and silent stars for company. One quiet night, as Rashid sat on the edge of the lonely island's shore, watching the silver moonlight dance across the restless waves, he felt the weight of hopelessness pressing harder than ever. His once strong body had grown weak, his fine clothes had become rags, and his mind was weary from waiting, for help, for hope, for an end. Suddenly, through the silence, he heard the faint sound of water splashing. A small boat emerged from the misty darkness, gently gliding toward the shore. A lone figure sat inside, a man with a calm face and piercing eyes. He stopped a short distance away and called out, "You Rashid." At first, Rashid was too stunned to reply. When the man called again, louder this time, Rashid stumbled forward and answered, "Yes, I am Rashid. Do you wish to leave this island?" the man asked, his voice as still as the night. Rashid's heart leapt. "Yes, yes. Please take me with you. I'll be forever in your debt." The boatman nodded slowly. "Very well. I ask nothing now, but when you return safely to your homeland, you must repay me. Promise me that." Without hesitation, Rashid agreed. The stranger extended a hand and pulled Rashid into the boat. As they sailed under the starry sky, Rashid stared at the mysterious man, wondering who he was, how he had found him, and why he was helping. By dawn, they reached the familiar shores of Hispania. The boatman handed Rashid a few coins and said, "Use these to clean yourself and return to the palace. When the time comes, I will find you." And just like that, he vanished into the mist, leaving behind questions, wonder, and a promise that Rashid would never forget. As the golden sun rose over the horizon, Rashid stepped once more onto the bustling shores of Hispania, this time as a ragged survivor rather than a triumphant hero. Though his appearance had changed drastically, his heart still burned with hope. Clutching the coins given by the mysterious boatman, he bought new clothes, trimmed his overgrown beard, and cleaned himself up. He then made his way to the same inn where he had once stayed before meeting the royal family. Word of his arrival spread like wildfire. When the princess heard his name, she rushed to the inn, tears already falling from her eyes. The moment she saw Rashid standing there, alive and well, she ran into his arms. Their embrace silenced every doubt, every fear, every long night spent waiting. Soon, the news reached the king and queen, who were overcome with joy. They had believed Rashid lost forever. That evening, the palace was lit brighter than ever before. A grand celebration was held to mark Rashid's miraculous return. The queen wept tears of joy, holding his hands tightly, and the king declared, "The man who brought our daughter home has returned. This time, not as a guest, but as family." Guests, nobles, and servants alike cheered, for Rashid's courage had not only changed the fate of a kingdom but had also won the hearts of its people. Soon after, in a royal ceremony, Rashid was married to the princess. The captain who had raised him came with an old woman, his mother, reuniting a family broken for years. The palace, once filled with sorrow, now echoed with laughter, music, and the promise of a future shaped by love, loyalty, and unshakable destiny. Rashid's journey had finally come full circle, ending in the arms of those who had always waited for his return. After the grand celebrations in Hispania and his royal marriage to the long-lost princess, Rashid knew it was time to fulfill one last dream, returning to his homeland. Though he had gained honor, wealth, and love in a foreign land, his heart still yearned for the quiet shores where he was born, the small home where his journey had begun, and the woman who had once made the hardest sacrifice a mother could ever make. With blessings from the king and queen, Rashid and his bride set sail toward his native land, accompanied by his adoptive father, the old sea captain, and the wealthy merchant who had once trusted him as a young sailor. The journey home was peaceful, as if the sea itself celebrated his triumph. Upon arrival, the villagers gathered to greet the man whose story had become legend. But the most emotional moment came when the old captain introduced Rashid to a frail, humble woman with teary eyes and trembling hands. "This," he said, "is your mother." For a moment, Rashid stood frozen, his heart aching with emotion. Then he stepped forward and fell to his knees, embracing her tightly. She wept in silence, finally reunited with the son she had once given away for a better future. Rashid's return was not just a homecoming, it was a victory of destiny, love, and faith. The old merchant, now too weak to continue his trade, handed over his entire business to Rashid, trusting no one else more. Rashid settled in his homeland with his wife, his mother, and his two fathers, one who gave him life and one who gave him the world. And so, Rashid's story ended not in a palace or a battlefield, but in the warmth of home, surrounded by family, where every hardship was transformed into a tale of triumph. The story of Rashid is not just a tale of adventure, it is a timeless journey of courage, sacrifice, destiny, and love. From the humble shores where a poor widow raised her only son by collecting leftover fish, to the grand palaces of foreign lands where Rashid became a hero and prince, every chapter of his life teaches us something profound. His journey was filled with storms, betrayals, separations, and moments of despair, yet he never lost faith in doing what was right. When a kind-hearted captain took him away in hopes of giving him a better life, it was a mother's tearful sacrifice that laid the foundation of his greatness. The captain's guidance, the merchant's trust, and Rashid's own bravery helped him rise above the ordinary. Whether it was saving an innocent girl from a cruel fate or outsmarting greedy traders in a strange land, Rashid always chose honor over fear, and generosity over greed. Even when betrayed and abandoned on a deserted island, Rashid's patience and willpower did not break. He was saved by a mysterious boatman, a symbol of divine reward for his goodness, and returned to fulfill his destiny. His reunion with the princess, the royal family, and finally, his birth mother, brought his journey full circle. He was no longer just a sailor, he had become a legend. In the end, Rashid's life stands as a reminder that those who act with integrity, remain patient in trials, and never lose hope are ultimately rewarded. His story inspires us to believe that no matter how lost we feel, or how far life carries us from where we began, the path of truth and love will always lead us home. Rashid's legacy lives on, not in gold or titles, but in hearts touched by his story.